Welcome back to the table, friends. I'm your humble host, GreyDMs. With me, as always, is Owen.
Hello.
Owen, deep inside, do you yearn for the dungeon?
I do yearn.
Everybody,
Afraid.
you just have to make sure you're outside when it comes.
Yeah.
So,
And wearing all my clothes.
well, yeah, all your clothes, and try to get some weird crap, because you want to be the first into the dungeon with some weird crap.
Something really weird.
Because you're going to get some achievement, and that's going to be really cool. For those of you who have read the Dungeon Crawler series, you know exactly what is infestated our minds, the worm that is in there.
Keep talking about it.
For those who haven't, this is not what we're talking about in this podcast, but it did inspire a discussion I wanted to have with you all, which is understanding and accepting the differences between a planned narrative and emergent narrative, which I believe is a crucial point in understanding why we tell stories and why some people like to play games for different reasons. So bear with me. This is going to be interesting or not. One of the two. There's no in between.
This is either good
or
bad.
Not even bad, just not.
Yeah.
So we're going to start talking about defining basically the difference between planned narrative and emergent narrative, all centered around the concept of a TTRPG.
Okay.
So the narrative or story is the central pillar of any tabletop role-playing game. It's the framework upon which player actions, character development, world events are built. The method by which this narrative is constructed and experience can be broadly categorized into two primary philosophies: planned narrative and emergent narrative. While most games exist on a spectrum between these two poles, understanding them as distinct concepts is crucial for both game masters, or DMs, and players to align their expectations and create a satisfying gameplay experience. So we're going to talk basically and then analyze and kind of give approaches to these two things. So let's start with planned narrative. Planned narrative, often referred to as linear or like an on-rails story, is one where major plot points, key events, and ultimate conclusions are designed by the game master ahead of time. The GM acts as a primary author of the story's main arc. So in this model, the DM creates a sequence of events, encounters, and story beats that the players are expected to progress through. While players have the freedom in how they approach individual scenes and challenges, their actions are intended to guide them towards the next predetermined plot point. The overall story has a clear beginning, middle, and end, much like a novel or film. Published adventure modules such as Dungeons & Dragons Curse of Strahd or Paizo's Pathfinder Adventure Paths are classic examples of planned narratives.
How'd you come up with this idea? I read it in a book.
The planned narrative serves several important functions in the TTRPG space. For example, it allows GMs to craft a tightly paced, thematic, and dramatic story with epic set pieces and a satisfying pre-designed conclusion. It's often easier for new or busy GMs to prepare for, as they can focus on designing the upcoming scenes rather than preparing for every possible player choice in an open world. It excels at replicating specific genres that rely on structure, such as mystery, horror, or heroic epics. A good mystery requires carefully placed clues that lead to a specific conclusion. Players also always have a clear sense of purpose and direction, which can be preferable for large groups who dislike aimless wandering.
Goose coin.
Goose coin is a topic I wanted to bring up yet. So let's look at an example. The players are told that they must gather the 3 shards of some legendary sword to defeat a dragon that will awaken in a month. The location of the 3 shards are known. The story is about the party's journey to these 3 specific locations and the challenges they overcome. While they may choose to go on to the forest dungeon before the mountain peak, they are fundamentally following the pre-written path to collect the shards. So are we clear on what planned narrative is?
No, can you start at the beginning?
Let's go back. So for everybody out there, just hit rewind, and we'll just copy this over here.
Once you get to that,
Okay. Oh, no, we're back.
I
Okay,
get it.
nice.
Yeah.
Such a cheesy
Thank you, Grey.
Second time around made sense.
Wow, it really sunk in.
That was really hard to just mimic the exact cadence I did.
I had to remember all the times I went, oh, wow.
So, in contrast, what is emergent narrative? So an emergent narrative is one that arises organically from the choices of the players and the interplay of the game's systems within a given environment. The story is not pre-written. It is discovered by everyone at the table, including the GM.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
So that's how Fate. No, not Fate. Was it Fate? Is it the one where it's like the group itself is deciding on the narrative as they play?
No, Fate was the system that you played, but Fate was like... Fate is actually, we'll bring that up as an example, but you are thinking of... Yeah,
why can't I think of the name of it?
Yeah, you think about that while we go.
Okay, I will think about it.
So in this model, the GM's primary preparation is focused on world building. The GM creates a setting, it could be a city, a region, or a star cluster, and populates it with interesting factions, non-player characters, and their own goals and dynamic situations. The GM then presents this sandbox to the players, and the narrative becomes the chronicle of the players' actions within it. The story is a chain of consequences that results from the player's goals and decisions. Games like Blades in the Dark, Stars Without Number, and West Marches style campaigns are designed to produce emergent narratives. The emergent narrative model is highly valued for several reasons. It offers the highest degree of player freedom. Players set their own goals, and their choices have a direct and significant impact on the direction of the story and the state of the world. The world feels more like a living, breathing place because it reacts realistically to the players rather than bending to the needs of the pre-written plot. Since no one knows where the story is going, genuine moments of surprise, triumph, and tragedy can occur for everyone at the table, including the GM. The narrative is fundamentally about the characters and their motivations, as their goals are what drives the plot forward. So as an example, the GM creates the city-state of Silvercrest, detailing its corrupt city guard, a burgeoning thieves guild, a mystical cult, and several feuding noble houses. The players decide their goal is to start a mercenary company. Their first contract puts them in conflict with the thieves guild. Their success attracts the attention of a noble house who tries to hire them for an assassination. The story becomes about their mercenary company's rise to power, the enemies they make, and how they change the political landscape of Silvercrest. None of this was planned. It emerged from the player's initial goal. Kind of get an idea of now the two different kind of poles on the spectrum that we're describing. So we may ask, well, okay, so how does a game's mechanics or the way a game works affect basically how the story is being, what type of narrative is being written? So the tendency of a tabletop role-playing game to favor either a planned or emergent narrative is not accidental. It is a direct result of conscious design choices made by the game's creators. These choices, embedded in the game's rules, presentation, and support material, guide the GM and player towards a particular style of play. So we're going to analyze.
Analyze? Oh, I love analyzing.
It's going to analyze some core mechanics and things that tend to lean towards one of these.
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as core mechanics, things that lead towards a more planned narrative are binary pass and fail systems. So traditional skill checks where only outcomes are success or failure tend to support a planned narrative. The goal is to overcome a specific obstacle to move the story to the next beat. The mechanic answers, did you get past the guards, but doesn't inherently create new complications. Systems with highly detailed and tactical combat rules often encourage a planned approach where the GM designs a series of balanced encounters for the players to overcome as part of a larger story arc. And games focus on depleting character resources, hit points or spell slots, over a series of encounters fit well with pre-planned adventures that have known number and difficulty of their obstacles. On the other side, systems that have like success with a cost mechanics that produce partial successes or successes with a complication are engines of emergent narrative. A powered by the apocalypse game where a mixed roll means you succeed but generates unexpected consequences that a GM can build upon. Popularized by games like Blade in the Dark, clocks are a visual tool to track progress towards a goal or the approach of a threat. When players see an alert level clock ticking up due to their actions, it creates a dynamic story of rising tension that emerges directly from their choices. Games that provide mechanics for how factions pursue their own goals independent of the players create a living world. The GM doesn't need to plan a story, they can play out the factions' moves and see how players get tangled. This is a cornerstone of sandbox games like Stars Without Number. So what about character creation and advancement? Well, system with strong class identities, example fighter, wizard, cleric, create characters who are well suited to be protagonists in an adventure. Their abilities are designed to overcome challenges presented by the DM and kind of lead towards planned narrative. Advancement that primarily grants characters more power, more damage, higher bonuses, more hit points, focuses the game on facing ever greater pre-planned threats. The story is often about characters becoming powerful enough to face the big boss. Contrasting to character creation that hard codes player-driven goals into mechanics is a powerful tool for emergence.
Mm-hmm.
In Burning Wheel, players write beliefs for their character. Example, I will avenge my brother by bankrupting the House of Smith. And the game's reward system is tied directly to pursuing those beliefs. The story is the pursuit of player-written goals.
I like that.
Advancements that give characters more options, contacts, and ties to the world rather than just more power encourages emergent play. A character might level up by gaining ownership of a tavern, making a powerful political ally, or becoming the target of a vengeful new enemy. Character creation that generates a backstory with random events, allies, and enemies, as seen in Traveler or Cyberpunk, immediately provides a web of relationships and plot hooks for the GM to use, creating a story that is personal to the character's history. So finally, game master tools and guidance. So, what lends to a planned narrative? Encounter building focused. So GM chapters that provide extensive advice on balancing combat encounters, calculating challenging rain, and structuring a 5-room dungeon or a 3-act story are teaching the GM how to build a planned adventure. Villain-centric advice, guidance that focuses on creating compelling antagonists with grand plans that the players must thwart, is steering the GM towards authoring a specific plot. Once again, in contrast, random generation tools. So games that filled with random tables for creating planets, cities, NPCs, missions, and political situations are giving the GM a toolkit to create a dynamic sandbox. The emphasis is on generating interesting situations, not pre-written plots. Fronts or threats concept, like fronts from Dungeon World, provide GM with a framework to organize looming threats and their grim portents. This allows the GM to advance these threats in the background, making the world feel alive and reacting to which problems the players choose to engage with. And finally, as far as published material, adventure paths. The existence of official multi-book adventuring paths that tell a complete story from level 1 to 20 is the clearest possible sign of a planned narrative adventure. And canonical detailed lore. Settings presented with an exhaustive history, a detailed world map, and a major ongoing central conflict encourage GMs to run stories that engage with the pre-written canon. While setting toolkits, setting presented with the deliberate blank spaces, unresolved tensions, and evocative but loosely defined factions encourage GMs and players to fill in the details and make the world their own. And location-based modules, published adventures designed as self-contained, problem-rich locations that can be dropped into any campaign, are tools for emergent play. They are situations, not stories, waiting for players to creatively or narratively interacting with them. If you wanted to, let's say, cultivate a more emergent narrative type style to your game, what are some things that you could do to kind of do that as a GM? Well, here's a couple different tips.
Oh, thank God. I thought you were actually asking me.
On the spot.
My mind went blank. I was like, shoot everybody and run away.
Yeah, pretty much. Just like lock the door, roll in a gas canister, and be like, you have 10 seconds before you die. Figure it out.
Figure it out. Merchant gameplay.
Wasn't that a story, guys? So the first thing you should probably do is think about having the right mindset.
Oh, God.
So
already off to a bad start.
So you should think like a referee, not an author. So your primary job is to be fair and consistent arbiters of the rules and the fiction. The world has truths and you represent them, but the players act and you determine the consequences. You are not responsible for the story's ending or even what happens next session. Be a fan of the player characters. Your goal is not to defeat the players or tell them your story. Your goal is to put them in interesting situations, challenge their characters' beliefs, and watch them do awesome things. Cheer for their victories and make their failures meaningful and dramatic. Embrace the unknown. The most exciting part of this style is that you, the GM, also get to be surprised. Let go of any attachment to a specific outcome. If the players kill the villain you spent weeks creating in the first session, that's not a failure. It's the start of a new, unexpected story about the power vacuum they just created.
As you rip pages out of your
dramatically to make them feel bad. Right. So as far as preparation goes, build factions with goals. This is the engine of emergent narrative. Don't just have a thieves guild. Have the guild at hand, a thieves guild whose goal is to control the shitty
shitty what?
The city shipping industry. Maybe it's a shitty shipping industry.
Shitty shipping.
Give them a leader, a home base, and a few methods they use. Now do this for 2 to 3 other factions in the city. When these faction goals conflict, it creates tensions. When the player gets involved, it creates a story. Design problem-rich locations. Don't design a location with a linear path. Design it with problems. Instead, the players go through rooms A, B, and C to fight boss D. Design a ruined castle where a goblin tribe is starving, a territorial owlbear has nested in the main tower, and a ghost haunts the crypts below, all at the same time. Let the players decide which problem, if any, they want to deal with.
If it was our group, we would mess with none of the problems.
None of them or all of them
yes. At once.
That's like,
we lead the goblin troop to the owlbear who just happened to be hanging out with the ghost at that same moment.
And then you could use fronts or clocks. So a front or a clock is a simple tool that tracks threat to advance when the players are busy elsewhere. Is there a plague sweeping around the land? Make a 6-segmented clock. Every so often, tick it up. This makes the world feel alive and creates consequences for the players in action. Create a toolbox, not a blueprint. Your notes shouldn't be a script. They should be a collection of resources. Have lists of random NPC names, interesting locations, weird rumors, potential encounters. When the players go somewhere unexpected, you can pull from your toolbox to improvise confidently. So when you actually get to the table, what should you do? Well, listen for the spark. So pay close attention to what the players are interested in. Did a player ask a surprisingly detailed question about the local blacksmith? Maybe that blacksmith has a secret. Did the party's wizard spend time studying the weird magical runes on a statue? That statue is now a source of ancient power. Lean into what your players find engaging. Ask probing questions. Constantly put the creative ball in your player's court. Instead of describing an NPC, ask the player, you're a former soldier, what do you notice about the guard captain that makes you not trust him?
Problem is, a group like ours would become so hyper-focused on that one thing.
Yeah.
And then you'd be like, so he's just a bad guy. He's not the bad guy.
Well, but maybe now he is.
Now he becomes the bad guy. Yes. Emergent.
So the world reacts. After every session, think about the player's actions and ask, who was affected? What happens now? If the players cleared out that goblin-infested castle, what's the headline next week? Baron praises hero for reclaiming the ancestral keep, or perhaps refugee crisis as displaced goblins flood farmlands. These consequences become the hook for the next session. So say yes and or yes but. This is the golden rule of improv. When a player wants to do something audacious, your first instinct should be yes. Yes and affirms and builds on the idea. Players, I want to try to intimidate the entire bar. Okay, roll for it. Yes, you succeed, and the leader of the local mercenaries is so impressed he offers you a job. Yes, but affirms the attempt while introducing a cost or a complication. I want to scale that castle wall. Yes, you can, but it's slick with rain. You'll have to do it without your heavy armor. And finally, leverage your players. Their goals are the main quest. In a planned narrative, the GM provides the quest. In emergent narrative, the player's goals are the quest. In session 0, ask your players to create at least one goal, one concrete, actionable goal for their character. That story will be the chronicle of them pursuing the goal. Outsource world building. Ask players to contribute to your world. The character is from this city. What's a strange tradition that they have? You're a member of the Wizards Guild. Name a rival who's always trying to one-up you. This gives them a deeper connection to the world and saves you work. Run a strong session 0. This is where you set the expectations, tell your players explicitly this will be an open-world sandbox game. It will not provide a main quest line. Your character's motivations will drive the story. Where do you want to go, and what do you want to do?
Have the right group when you decide to do that. Yeah. Because having every option in the world might sound cool, but it also can be paralyzing.
Yeah. So we did present how to run a more emergent narrative. But emergent narrative is not always the best choice.
No.
So the beginning of this, I said this is basically 2 tent poles, like in a spectrum, right? Yeah, so neither one of them really is the best thing, right? Emergent narrative is probably the source of many of your most fun moments at the table. It's the thing that is also probably the hardest thing that you have to explain to other people. Like, how many of us have some story about something that happened around the table that if you try to tell your, like, mom or dad, like, how are you going to tell them? It's because you're like, well, no, you don't understand. Like, I had this thing I was rolling, and then because this item and this thing happened, and I have a bunch of backstory to explain to you.
And then they're like, this sounds like Satan worship. We got to take you to the church.
And then you spend the next 3 years, dedicated to a, convent, and you're not sure how your life's going.
And then all of a sudden you find yourself turned into a half cat person in Cuba with 2 prisoners, and you run into a guy with his cat on his shoulder, and oh my God, it's awful.
And then she's, pissed off about what type of cat person you are.
Yeah.
It's just this whole thing.
Oh God, Vanna Browns.
No, it's from England. Anyway. So emergent storytelling and emergent gameplay is like, emergent gameplay is not storytelling, but emergent gameplay is kind of like another field of the study, which is basically, when a gameplay loop emerges out of mechanics in a game that was never attempted to be explored, and then people be like obsessing about it.
Mm-hmm.
The concept is when something feels organic, you generally give it more weight because it's yours. It's not something that the DM gave you. It's something that you kind of chose to pursue. But at the same time, if you drop players into a sandbox, sometimes they go nowhere.
Yep. That's been my major experience.
So you have to kind of like sit there between the two of these poles and try to figure out how you can kind of coax your players into doing something, how you can kind of like gauge how your party feels at the moment, what they need, because sometimes they need like a big event, a big narrative event to kickstart something. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the party gives you everything you need. Like, here's all the knives, so to speak.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they create their own and they obsess about them and they don't follow yours. But like the best stories, in my opinion, are when you have both. You've given the party a strong planned path, and you've said, like, this is kind of how this is laid out in front of your characters, and they choose what pieces they buy into it, and they decide to follow that path. But then along the way, they pick all their motivations themselves. They pick the way they're going to get there. They pick the reasons that they're going to get there. They pick the sub-obsessions that they're going to hold deep in their hearts on their character sheet and not tell you until the very last session when they wind up the killing blow at a party member and have like all this experience telling you why it's going to happen and like how it's amazing.
And you just stand there in awe.
Just golf clap at them. I think the best stories are when you have like that guiding narrative as a goalpost and you have emergent narrative as the substance of the story. Because we know the reverse, like the goose coin incident. So for any of you who have played Storm King's Thunder, there is a portion of that story, that published module by Wizards of the Coast, where the players are following leads, and eventually they get to a point where in the book it explains that they have a wooden goose coin, and they're trying to find someone who can kind of guide them towards information about it or where they should look based on this coin. And in the book, they offer the storyteller or the DM or the dungeon master a guideline that it should take them a week to find. And if you decide that that's not so much a guideline, so much that's how the module works, you may watch your players spend that week pulling their hair out to the point where they end up creating an avatar for a deity out of a poor farmer who just wanted to go home. because nobody knows what the hell the goose coin's about.
I mean, when they've literally explored everything else and all that's left is this one thing, don't just say, well, you're going to have to wait a week.
Yeah, you should keep asking. You just keep... No, you... But the point is, at that point, like, we had probably found the 10th or 15th opportunity for emergent narrative to go in, or just to slip a hand in and basically point us in a direction. And instead, a very specific emergent narrative appeared where we decided to take a poor little farmer and convince him that he was an adventurer and he didn't get a say in the matter, which led to eventually some deity blessing him and choosing to make him her avatar.
Reluctantly, he became their avatar.
Very reluctantly. So that's probably, even though that was a funny story for us, it came out of a period of utter madness as players.
Literally ready to flip the table.
It's just crazy. But at the same time, fairly recently, and I mean the past couple of years, we've had, I can think of a couple different occurrences where basically we put forth onto the table, like, here's the situation. Now, what are you guys going to do? And everybody's like, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're like, I'm trying to make you have goals and pick things for your characters. And sometimes a character doesn't have a goal until it shows up.
Yes.
Until they've just gone a couple sessions and eventually they picked the one thing out of all the sessions that they're like, this is the thing I care about.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm going to run with it. And that's why, like, you can't really force emergent narrative.
Yeah.
Like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And you can lead a player to the table, but you can't force them to give their character a goal.
Yeah. And the DM kind of has to realize where their characters are at. So if he has a group with them and he's like, I'm going to let them decide where they want to go, but they haven't reached that point yet where they have their character has a goal, giving them that option, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So the DM kind of has to be there and be like, oh, I know this person wants this. I know this person wants this. I know this person wants this. Now I'm going to give them that chance to decide what they do.
Yeah. And it also, as a player, it means that part of your job isn't thinking of these things for your character.
It is.
If you show up every game session just expecting to follow the plot line forward, you're not really contributing to the overall play at the table. You're basically just being a spectator.
Yep.
And it's easy, and so many things in life draw your attention, and we're busy. And
there are a lot of people that are just happy to be at the table.
Yeah.
But
like, and it's really something that needs to be developed, is to have this concept of, like, deciding what is your character's narrative, what is your character's goal.
What's my character's motivation? Yeah.
And it's different than, like, having a 16-page backstory that you hand the DM and you're like, hey, institute this.
Yeah.
Session 2, the romantic love interest should show up and be bequeathed to the rival princedom so that I can, because by session 4, I want to go there and challenge a duel of honor. And you're like, no, that's...
She better be hot.
Yeah, she better be hot. Yeah, like, you have to have reasonable expectations. You have to work with your storyteller, your DM, your GM, whatever you want to call it. And unfortunately, you have to work on something that is not a definitive science. This thing has only really existed in one lifetime so far.
Yeah.
People don't have, like, this stuff on it. It's not like a 300-year-old hobby where you're like, oh, we bring out the ancient tomes and whoosh, oh, here's the scripture on how to run a table, you know?
I mean, we kind of do, though. Bring up the ancient tomes. We read the rules that have been inscribed within.
Yeah, but, like...
I casteth smite. You may not cast a smite again. You have already done it this turn.
For Wednesday. But I mean, like, as far as every DM's guide that is published, basically every main manual comes out with, regardless of whatever game it's for, comes out with basically advice for the person who's running it. Yeah. And a lot of things we have figured out as a society, right? We know some things better than others. But also, if you pick the most popular systems, the most popular TTRPGs in the world, and you look at the published content for them, there are widely different opinions on what should be done.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this season, Season 4 for Critical Role, Brennan Lee Mulligan is running a West Marches style game. Think about that. The show that is literally scheduled every week, that is basically running this continuity of having engaging plot lines that people love to watch and dive in. And he's opening it up to basically like, hey, what do you guys want to do this week?
Yeah.
That's a pretty ballsy move. And honestly, it's a good example of how the hobby is supposed to be, and less of how like a narrative, experience is supposed to be. And I'm sure the professionals are going to do something pretty great with it. But
oh yeah,
it'll be fine. But sometimes you have sessions where you just have to figure out what direction you guys want to go in. And sometimes you have those sessions 5 in a row, and the story goes nowhere, and you decide not to DM it for a while.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. I don't have to accept your apology because I did it back to you. So.
Yes, you did. Quite frustratingly.
Yeah. So we're all even here in the world of shit.
I've never done it maliciously, though. It's just like I said. It's that situation where it's like I have a particular way I want to play. And I haven't been able to play that way in a while. I keep getting put into the position of the person trying to wrangle the cats for the group. And I rather watch the cats go crazy and get lit on fire, but I can't because then we end up not going anywhere.
Maybe it's the greatest torture of all.
Yeah.
It's the continuation of being in a group that just does what you say.
Oh, and it's funny because you'd think with my personality and the things that I like to do, you'd think that would work. But it's that whole monkey paw thing of, like, oh, I wish that every time I went to the casino, I win. It's like, this is heaven. It's like, wait a minute, a casino where all I do is win? No, this is hell.
Yeah, I know. It is absolutely like you wished for it. And you got it now.
Yeah.
Someday, who knows? Someday maybe we'll just all get old and die, but
oh boy, I can't wait till that happens. I mean, we're halfway there already.
Halfway there. All right. Well, before we go down that path any further, so emergent gameplay.
I was going to say, do you have anything else to say about emergent gameplay?
Not really. It's, we kind of talked about it, but my main point is that a lot of people, there are things in the hobby that people are going to kind of like beat you over the head with. And emergent narrative is one of them. People are going to be like, this is the best thing ever. And it's the only thing that matters. And that's not true.
Yeah.
Having something on rails is a way to do it. Having a plot where you introduce the big bad with the twirling the mustache and people decide to go with it is apparently the preferred way for many people in Japan, as we noticed a couple podcasts ago. Yeah. It's not bad. It's just you have to cater to what your table needs. Mm-hmm. And listening to your table and talking about it with empathy and with patience is what leads to a better outcome. And if we all did that, we'd all have a lot more fun. So that's all I've got to say on the matter.
Okay. Well, thank God.
All right, guys. With that, we'll see you later.
Bye.